Good morning. Today is Wednesday of the first full week of the season of Lent. And today I would like to focus on the gospel passage that was read this prior Monday for daily Mass. And it'll be very familiar to all of us, I'm sure. St. Matthew records that teaching of Jesus to his disciples and the crowd, a larger crowd, where he goes through, he begins by saying, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? And then he goes into that parable of the just judge of all at the end of time, separating all the peoples, some on his right, some on his left, as he says, as a shepherd separates sheep from goats. And then he speaks to those on his right and says, blessed are you, because when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. When I was ill and in prison, you visited me, and so forth. And they're surprised. They say, Lord, when did we see you hungry or naked and clothe you, or sick and in prison and visit you? And Jesus then says, as often as you did it for the least of my brethren, you did it for me. And then he turns to those on the left and says the same thing, but he says, as often as you did not do these things for the least of my brethren, you did not do them for me. And then he concludes by saying, the just go off to eternal happiness, and the unjust, or those on the left, go off to eternal damnation. What Jesus is revealing to us is rather clear, of course. And again, you can read this in St. Matthew's Gospel and get the full effect by meditating on it, but it's good for us to hear this at the very beginning of Lent. But what Jesus is revealing to us is, first, this is how he will judge each of us at that moment of death, when we pass from this life through death to eternity and stand before him to receive the particular judgment. But it's also a revelation to us that the reason we are to love our neighbor as ourselves, because our neighbor is a reflection of Jesus himself, who suffered, died, and rose from the dead for all of us. And so when we are out and about, no matter where we may be, the church is reminding us, be very conscious of the fact that others with whom we live, with whom we work, whom we may meet just once in our life, these too are children of God. We are to love them as we would love the Lord himself. We cannot make distinctions, even for those with whom we have a difficult time getting along. And so it's a good reminder for us in this first week of Lent of why we fast, why we perform works of charity, why we pray daily. It is to, in a certain sense, rid ourselves of those obstacles we've allowed to grow up in our lives, which prevent us from loving others as we love ourselves, and in effect, loving others as we are to love Christ himself, since he's the one who tells us that as we did these good works of charity for others, we did them for him. And as often as we neglected to love others, we've neglected to love him. And so I would suggest that you get your New Testament and find in St. Matthew's Gospel this beautiful parable and teaching of Jesus and use it as a daily kind of examination of life and conscience, and sincerely ask the Lord for His grace to do better in loving others, because in loving them, He tells us so clearly we are loving Him. And so as we continue with this first week of Lent and on into the Lenten season, keep this beautiful parable in mind. It's a good way of checking ourselves from day to day, week to week, as far as, are we following, are we obeying what the Lord is asking of us?